Welcome to How Do They Afford That, the podcast that peeks into the financial lives of everyday Australians. I'm Michael Thompson. I'm a writer and the co-host of the podcast Fear and Greed Business News. And as always, I'm with Canna Campbell, financial planner, founder of Sugar Mama TV, the financial literacy platform covering YouTube and Instagram and TikTok and podcasts and books and everywhere. How are you going, Canna?
Good morning, Michael. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you. I've got a savings tip for us.
Ooh, hit us up.
Because usually you do them, and occasionally I will bring a little kind of savings nugget to the studio, which is kind of a weird image, isn't it?
It is, yeah, a little bit disturbing, but okay, hit us with it.
So, you know how we talk, and we have talked in the past about streaming, about TV streaming and Netflix and Stan and all of them. And I've talked about how we've kind of cut back on one here and there and still have 7 different streaming. Are you aware of FAST, which is free ad-supported streaming TV, which is basically, to me, it is the budget solution to anybody who wants kind of entertainment options through TV. And it is basically this trend, right, that has happened in the last couple of years whereby it is often an offshoot of, say, your main network, say Channel 10 or 7 or 9, and they will actually have, and you need your smart TV to run this through it, but they will have dozens of channels that run as part of, say, an offshoot of, say, Channel 10. I'll use Channel 10 as an example because through Pluto TV on 10 Play, right, there are now, I think, more than 50 fast channels that are just showing like 24/7 kind of episodes of, say, like South Park or Happy Days and kind of I Love Lucy and old school ones like that. And like Nickelodeon now is a dedicated free channel on there as well.
I did know about Nickelodeon, but I didn't know about these other ones.
And the other ones. And then Channel 7 has the same thing where it's kind of 24/7 kind of home and away, and then others like have Bondi Vet, and there's kind of true crime channels, and there's kind of 9 Go, which is then another kind of like non-stop kids programming up until midday. But really, there are now hundreds of channels that previously were the domain of kind of like cable TV, yeah, or pay TV, or really then your paid streaming services. But because of the proliferation of fast TV channels in the last couple of years, there are now dozens and dozens and dozens of free options out there that could actually mean that you could cut back on the paid streaming services.
So my question to you is, what are you gonna cut down from 7? I believe you just incriminated yourself with.
Look, this isn't about me, Canna. This is, see, that would require me to actually follow through with things that I say I'm going to do. And as we've discussed on this podcast in the past, I do have a little bit of a follow through problem, that we talk about all of these things and we talk about the budget changes and we talk about the insurance and we talk about kind of improving your home loan deal. And I walk out of here and say, Canna, I'm going to go and make some changes. And then we come back the next week and you say, how did the changes go?
I'm feeling very, very wounded still.
I do my best.
I'm feeding you so much information. You get to pick my brain all the time for free. And you're not utilising it to your advantage.
Well, and actually, I think this is probably a topic that we can discuss at some point, which is, I've got all the information.
You have a money block.
I do. I have a money block, which again sounds a little bit painful, and it sounds a little bit linked to that kind of savings nugget that I brought earlier.
I'm going to send you some Metamucil your way and just really hope that we can flush out the blocks.
We are heading into a really disturbing space today. Look, we're talking actually about a really interesting topic today. I mean, our topics are always interesting. It feels like when I clarify that this one is interesting, I'm saying by default the others aren't. This one is also interesting.
This is very personal. And
indeed.
It's a topic that a lot of people may find make them feel a bit vulnerable, or maybe they'll actually feel incredibly safe hearing my vulnerability. Perhaps.
Yeah, it's quite a sensitive one. And recently we put the call out on social media to let us know if there are any topics that you would like us to cover. And we had a fantastic response. So we have some great kind of plans for the various episodes we're going to do in the future. But this one in particular today is interesting, and it is sensitive, and it is very personal. Because this listener said, Money management skills for the ADHD mind is the topic that I would like to hear about. And she said, I'm 39 and feel that despite trying really hard, can't make money work the way it should for me. My son has been diagnosed recently and my brother. Now I'm working with a psychologist, waiting to see a psychiatrist. Hopefully it is not too late. Seeing that I turn 40 at the end of the year, I would really like to turn my money story around for my future and for my son's future. So a podcast on this would be amazing. I agree. I think that does sound amazing. And as we say, this is a personal one for you.
It is, because I was diagnosed with ADHD at the beginning of this year. And since that diagnosis, it's been life-changing, really. And it took a long time for me to actually put my hand up and finally ask for help.
I want to get into the money side of things, and particularly this belief, this kind of popular belief that people with ADHD are kind of bad with money. But first, can we just, I'd like to hear a bit more about your own story here, because everyone is different. But how did you know? Why were you diagnosed? Why did you seek help? What were the signs here?
Well, actually, it was staff that came to me and said, we think you might have ADHD, you should really go and get some help. And it was really interesting because I was having 5 different conversations running 5 different tasks. And ironically, the staff of mine that actually do have ADHD were the only ones that could keep up with me. And it took some very gentle conversations and continuous conversations about it could be worth speaking to someone and getting a proper diagnosis and looking at the different options. And for a long time, I just tried to push through and use a lot of mindfulness techniques, which most definitely helped and were very, very valuable. But then I got to a point where I was at complete and utter exhaustion, and all my go-to methods and techniques didn't work anymore. And I knew that enough was enough. And I went and saw a psychiatrist and did a whole pile of studies. And the moment he looked at my results, he said, no, we've got to do something now. And at that point, I was open to trying anything. And he put me on medication straight away. And it has been one of the best things that I've done for myself. And I wish I had known more about this, a long, long time ago.
And of course, this is something that if anyone suspects that they might be in the same boat, that it's just speak to a medical professional. Get some professional assistance and some professional advice on how to potentially manage the condition.
Absolutely. And there are lots of different ways of helping yourself and getting help from other people. It has been the biggest relief for me this year, and I can see that I'm living a better life now because I'm aware of this, and I now also know how to manage it properly, and the people around me also know how to support me and when my ADHD flares up. So it's been great.
You mentioned having 5 conversations at once. How has that changed now? Are you able to kind of focus more on one conversation, seeing that through to the end and then moving on to the next, rather than having all of these things going on at the same time? Because that sounds exhausting.
Yes, so that's probably one of the biggest benefits of actually finally getting on the medication, because I couldn't do this myself with my own techniques, but I will catch myself trying to get up and start something new, whereas I have this voice in my head that says, hang on, don't, sit back down, finish this task, and then when you've completed it, you can go on to the next task. Because what was happening is I'd have 3 or 4 different projects on the go, and then nothing would get completed. And the best analogy I can use to explain to someone how ADHD impacts and impacted my life, and everyone is different. So, this won't be the same for everyone who has ADHD, but it's like you get in the car and you want to drive somewhere, and you put the keys in the car, you close the door, you put the seatbelt on, you turn the car on, and then you go to put the car into reverse to reverse out of the car park, but you can't. It's like you're frozen. And you've just got this incredible, ironically, block that you just can't. So then you're sitting there for a while going, what's wrong with me? It's literally like a brick wall around you. Yeah. So then you go, okay, fine, I will not try and drive the car today. I'll go back into the house and do something else and try something. And then you have the same thing where you go, okay, I'll go unpack the dishwasher, and you'll open the door, unpack half the dishwasher, and then get distracted and walk away. And before you know it, you've got 5 different tasks that you've actually not completed any of them at all. And I will lose things. I will delete things like I did the other day with our podcast notes, deleted all of them.
That was quite an
7:30 at night.
an amusing text message to receive going, I think I might have deleted everything. Like, okay, all right, let's see. And you had.
And I had. And that is an example where I gave myself a break over the long weekend of not taking any medication. And I will walk around the house looking everywhere for my mobile phone, and it will be in my back pocket. Or even worse, it will be in my hand.
Oh, that is quite something.
Yes. And even with my children, I have 3 children and my 2 girls are wild. And if I'm not concentrating on them, that is when the house gets painted in Nutri-Grain or, things get broken, and it impacts me in different ways and different times. But then you do go into hyperfocus. And this is the biggest, misconception with ADHD is you can't concentrate. For me personally, you actually have one or the other. You cannot concentrate, or you have extreme hyperfocus where you literally physically can't stop what you're doing because you're so absorbed and you're in this cone and you can't break free from it. And it's like this paralysis where you're just stuck. Lost for words. I'm like, Canna is officially a crackpot.
No, not at all. I'm hearing this and I'm thinking about the fact that we have seen a significant increase in the number of women that are being diagnosed with this.
Huge. And I will do a massive shout out to a podcast that really helped me. And it was by Mel Robbins, who got diagnosed in her mid-40s with ADHD under a very similar situation that I was. And it was listening to her interpretation of it was extremely comforting. But from what I understand from talking to my psychiatrist was a lot of young women were misdiagnosed because a lot of the studies were based around boys at the time. And he actually said, Canna, you have had this your whole entire life, but you just didn't, you were misdiagnosed. It just got completely missed. And he said, that's why we're having this spike in people, women particularly, being diagnosed today.
On the money side then, and that is kind of where this question has come from, about managing your budget when you have ADHD and some of the challenges that come with finding that focus or finding the ability to really pull all the various pieces together of a budget, of a household budget, and to see that through. How do you do it?
Well, I owe a lot of, I think, the noise and the clutter and the hyperfocus versus the complete utter distraction to minimalism.
Oh, yeah.
Having less in my brain makes life a lot easier for me. So just really simplifying everything. And also this concept of piling. So it's we are just going into a whole other subtextual zone with blocks and my Metamucil comment and
now piling.
Yeah, piling. But piling is where you take one big task and break it down into small parts, and you can just focus on. It's probably the wrong. Well, the terminology is actually, I think, created by maybe Dr. Andrew Huberman, but he talked about just having piles where you've got one pile in front of you and you just focus on that one task, and that's what you do, and you don't get up until you've done it, which is essentially breaking things down. I guess also the principle behind the $1,000 project. So I don't try and conquer everything with my financial well-being. I will focus, okay, for the next 20 minutes, I'm just going to check our bank accounts and our transactions and make sure we've stuck to our budget. And that's all I try and do. I don't go in there and go, okay, we're going to fix our superannuation, check our personal insurance policies and, where our investment portfolio might be, or a home loan, or, all those sorts of things. I just focus on one little thing at a time. And that's good enough, because the next day I can then do something else. And also, I'm someone who rebels against control.
Yeah.
If someone tries to tell me I have to do something, this kind of wild child explodes. And I wouldn't say it's necessarily impulsive behavior, but that's probably me trying to deny the fact that it is impulsive behavior. So I take very much a free-flowing, abundant, prosperous mindset when I look at financial planning and I look at my financial well-being. So I don't ever look like a budget as something to control me and to define or explain where I can and cannot spend, which is why I always say a budget is just a pre-agreed spending boundary.
A lot of this is good advice for anyone.
Yes.
I mean, this isn't just for people with ADHD. This is just good general advice.
Life advice from Canna Campbell. Who would have ever known? especially when sometimes I look at my life and think it's a little bit of a mess. But the thing is, I give myself this healthy mindset where I really respect my financial well-being. So for me, having my finances sorted, it keeps me safe. So I can't do anything that's too self-destructive or impulsive. And if I was to, it's quickly and easily fixed because I have those safe, respectful boundaries in place.
Okay. On that, right, and this is important. There has often been this belief, right, that people with ADHD are bad with money. Do you believe that?
I completely disagree. I think that's the biggest misconception that's going around. I don't believe anyone is actually bad with money. What I do believe is we have bad education.
Oh.
Well, think about it. Were you taught at school how to do a budget?
I was not. No.
You probably taught Pythagoras' theorem.
I know how to calculate the area of a triangle. Yes.
Were you taught about, you went to university, okay, so were you taught about how to manage a credit card correctly or how to save up for an investment property or how to start a share portfolio?
None of those things. I did learn about kabuki theatre.
How much value does that add in your life?
Approximately zero. What I do not know is how to run a budget.
Well, there you go. And this is the biggest problem is people with ADHD are being told they're bad with money. That was someone who has ADHD, and one of the symptoms of ADHD is being hypersensitive, and therefore you get this erratic, irrational behavior. So how is that serving someone with ADHD, telling them that? And I believe ADHD is actually a superpower.
Go on.
So with ADHD, you have this amazing ability to teach yourself how to tap into hyperfocus. In fact, I wrote the $1,000 project across 10 weeks only on weekends because I could sit down and just get myself into this hyper-focus zone and just push through. So the other thing with ADHD is you have, a great level of sensitivity and you can pick up other people's intuition. But if you can learn how to apply your sensitivity in a way that you absorb things that inspire you or things that motivate you, and then you know how to create the environment for yourself that puts you into that hyper-focus, is actually quite incredible, not only what you can achieve with your financial goals, but also all your other goals and dreams ahead of you. And, I always say, you set yourself up for success. So what I do is before I go to bed at night, I make sure that when come to my desk in the morning, it is clear. It is organized, it is neat and tidy, and it is set in a way that makes me feel inspired to want to sit down and focus. And I also am hypersensitive to sounds and noises, particularly when my children are screaming really loudly. It impacts me so much so that my emotions can go wild, but I have to go back to the very beginning of what I'm doing. I can't just pick up from where I left off or where I got distracted. So what I've learned is I only work with headphones on.
Is impulsivity a challenge? We talked a little bit about it before, but in terms of money, is impulsivity a challenge for people with ADHD?
It's definitely a challenge, and it's something that impacts people at different times and in different conditions, and they obviously have their own sensitivity and triggers when it comes to that impulsive behavior.
Yeah.
But what I have found for myself personally is doing mental rehearsing, which if you want to go there, it's visualization, which is an element of manifestation. And there Michael goes and rolling his eyes. But
I'm not rolling my eyes, but I am noting the fact that it has been probably 6 weeks now since you have last mentioned manifesting. And
I've done very well. Perhaps the word manifestation is my impulsive, erratic behavior. But what I will do is I will practice watching myself and feeling myself saying, no, I'm not going to go and buy that because it's not in my budget, or no, that's actually going to impact our family's financial well-being if I go and splurge and do something really silly and dangerous and put something on a credit card that's not in our budget. So I actually practice and watch myself exercising self-control and listen to the sensation and tap into the sensation, which is obviously mindfulness, about feeling very calm and feeling very positive about our financial future and feeling that sense of self-control. Because that is really empowering, and understanding and upholding that respect for a budget. And even things like having games, financial games for myself, where I go, okay, I'm going to do 7 days of no spending, or the $1,000 project. I think when I look back at, what I've achieved financially through the $1,000 project, is that's essentially piling. I focused on one little goal financial goal at a time. And I've just literally gone rinse and repeat, save $1,000 or hustle $1,000 and just go and invest it.
Yeah.
And that is where I am today. And that's why that share portfolio is worth over $250,000.
That is remarkable. And that's actually a very good place to take a break, because I want to come back in a second and really let's answer the question that was put to us by our listener in terms of what someone can do if they have ADHD and they've been diagnosed and they're working through kind of the treatment kind of stages, but some of the steps that they can actually take to improve their relationship with money. We'll do that in a moment. All right, Canna, we are talking about ADHD and money, and this is in response to a note from a listener who asked us to cover it because she basically said that she would like some money management skills for the ADHD mind, that she wants to set herself up, she wants to turn around her money story and wants to set herself up for a better future and her son up as well. And so really the time has come to kind of put all of this together that we've talked about. Kind of what would you actually recommend for somebody with ADHD who wants to improve their relationship with money? What are some of the steps? What are some things that they should do? And then maybe we'll look at some of the things perhaps to avoid.
Well, first of all, I would talk to them about a vision. What is the vision for their financial future? What do they want it to look like? And really getting into some details, like, does that mean owning your own home? Does that mean having lots of money in superannuation? Does that mean being able to work part-time? What does that mean having emergency money? Really getting very clear as to what the vision is for your financial future. And then from there, a great ADHD brain will love working backwards from that, because you take that as the central focus and think, okay, well, what are all the individual steps I would need to take me back to where I am today? And you build that pathway working backwards. And it's how I have always designed my clients' financial planning strategies, that, where I needed to plan for someone's finances for the next, 30, 40 years. So that's think about the goal. What is the vision? And then what is the goal? And then really learning to sit and explore the emotions. I went through a period where I was constantly buying these fluffy jumpers. And it was actually probably when I was going through postnatal depression. And when I learned to sit and explore these emotions, I realized I was actually just really needing a big hug, because the jumper represented something that was loving and warm and kind and soft and fuzzy, which was some love I needed around me.
Oh, wow.
So, but the moment I explored that, then the sensation of wanting to buy fluffy jumper after fluffy jumper just dissipated. And I was like, oh, I'm okay now, actually. And a great tactic, which I used to do, which I haven't needed to do as much recently, is keeping a note on my phone as to what I have purchased, how much it was, and the date. And even not just for an ADHD brain, but for anyone, because we can very easily and conveniently forget, actually, I did buy something for myself, or I did have a bit of a splurge there, or there was something impulsive there. And it allows you to kind of allow a little bit of impulsivity and, an opportunity to jump on, or, a special treat, but then go, hang on, it's all right. Actually, you only did that the other month. Let's just keep it in check and keep a healthy balance on this.
Is the purpose of that to then feed that back into your budget, that you have spent this, or is it more just so that you can revisit it and go, oh, well, I have spent, I should be good?
Exactly.
Am I coming? I feel like I'm coming at it from the wrong way there.
No, it is. It's probably a combination of the both, making sure that you've stayed within the safe boundaries of your budget, but also understanding, actually, I am being kind to myself. I am looking after myself, because for me with the ADHD, I had this, because I was so exhausted from trying so hard to concentrate and having to work what felt, 3 times as hard as every average person just to concentrate. I was so exhausted. And then from the exhaustion, this very negative, toxic inner voice then would speak up. So by actually going, hang on, no, I am being nice to myself. I am honoring myself. I had a bit of a splurge there. Let's just maybe park that thought for a little bit and come back to it later. And just kind of helps soothe the emotions, uphold the sense of self-respect that I think sometimes is something that's lacking for someone who has ADHD. You can be really cruel to yourself sometimes mentally, and to understand that, okay, I've got this, I'm on top of this, and when it's appropriate, I can reward myself, and when it's not. And again, that boundary of that budget is a tool of, it's a shield of protection. It keeps you safe. And then you actually use your ability to absorb things that inspire you and motivate you, then to channel the right actions in positive alignment to those goals and dreams.
Okay. And in terms of then things to potentially avoid, and I don't want to finish on a downer here, but I'm assuming that steer clear perhaps of credit cards. Is it better to stick to kind of cash?
Look, it really boils down to the individual person, like that, and that's why I disagree with everyone bad with money with ADHD. I've got ADHD, and I've apparently had it for my whole entire life, and I've been okay with money. So if you use a credit card in a responsible way, just because you've been diagnosed or you have ADHD, doesn't mean you should stop using it. It's common sense here. So if you're using it responsibly, keep going. But if you're not, taking away that temptation is helpful. And other things like, setting up or reprioritizing your expenses. So getting all your essential expenses taken out by front loading your direct debits so that they come out before, the moment you get paid. All the, the rent comes out of the mortgage repayment and the gas and the, the gym memberships and mobile funds, all those essentials come out so that you can then spend what is left. And obviously when you're spending cash, you have to check your accounts on a regular basis, which is a very healthy habit to have. And once you spend all that money, it's gone. So it does actually empower you to correctly ration out your money more. So there is an element of, not just for ADHD, anyone who is reckless with money or perhaps a little bit irresponsible with money, saying goodbye to the credit card for a period of time until you can create a healthy habit system. Yes, but that's regardless of an ADHD diagnosis or not.
What about things that could potentially overwhelm you? Things like having too many bank accounts or having paper bills.
Yes, and this is, a classic sign or symptom of ADHD is not opening your mail. So this is why I come back to that philosophy of minimalism and simplicity, really making your life as easy as possible to not just manage your money, but also to stay on top of your money. Mm-hmm. So for me, I have one superannuation account. And that doesn't mean go and consolidate your super, because there are consequences of doing that. But by having less balls in the air, it's easier to focus. I have a couple of different accounts, but each account has its purpose. So, the idea of your 17 bank accounts makes my head spin and makes me feel incredibly overwhelmed. That is the opposite of simplicity and minimalism. I have what I need. I actually don't even have a credit card at the moment. Well, technically I do, but I haven't actually opened up the mail that's sitting in there. And I just, I don't necessarily need or want it, but less is more. Really try and keep it simple. Have the amount of bank accounts that you need, pile things up together, group things up together. And, I have one share portfolio. I have things where I don't have duplicates, because that's where that makes me feel overwhelmed. And when I feel overwhelmed, I don't want to deal with it.
Yeah. Look, I'm just thinking about that and going, that often, I think there'd be a lot of people that would identify with that, ADHD or otherwise, that suddenly you have these accounts piling up, bills piling up, the mail piling up, and that would just be overwhelming for anybody.
Yeah.
And I think the point is really that a lot of these tips, a lot of these little pieces of advice are just good for anybody looking to get on top of their money.
Absolutely. It makes a big difference when you can just make a few simple changes and suddenly it's like it's not so scary anymore, and you feel, really learning to channel that mindset and that energy to a positive thing. That this, for me, our budget keeps us safe. Having goals means we're growing and evolving and getting smarter and wiser with our money.
Well, look, hopefully I think we've answered the question today put to us by the listener about finding some money management skills, helping with money management skills for the ADHD mind. That really we've talked about the importance of simplicity and piling, which is a new term. I hadn't actually heard that before. I realized now that you have described it previously, but piling is a term I will be using now. And the fact that kind of creating those safe spending boundaries and front loading with your bills and things, and that then gives you the room to move within whatever is left over. It is about kind of creating that safe space for you to operate your money within that, and being aware of kind of what your limitations are, and being aware of where your challenges are. It might be impulsivity, it might perhaps be with a credit card, and that you need to. Everyone is different, and everyone who has been diagnosed with ADHD will have different symptoms and kind of a different perhaps relationship with money, and that this popular belief that is actually a misconception that people with ADHD are bad with money is really just that. It is a misconception. And that there are some very simple tips and strategies and ideas that you can actually implement, and that are good not just for people with ADHD, but anyone else as well, in order to help you get on top of your money, that do that financial snapshot, where your money is, who you owe money to, how much, and establish what your vision is, establish what your goal is, because once you know where you're heading, then you can plan the steps to get to it. That as we said, simplicity is key, and that might be reducing your number of bank accounts. It might be getting rid of paper bills. It might just be kind of assessing these very simple things that you can do to simplify your money and make it a little bit easier on your mind.
Perfect.
Oh, that's the first time you've ever said one of my summaries is perfect.
I need to be kinder to you.
Oh, I mean, you say you need to, but will you? I don't think so.
I'm all for self-improvement. Okay, you didn't need to be silent then, like the shock horror.
We will believe it when we see it. How do we find you, Kanna?
Instagram is the fastest place, but I now have my website up and running again. So for anyone who needs a budget template, they can, if wants to do their budget, they can subscribe to my newsletter, The Sugar Hit, and they can access that once they've subscribed.
And you can hear me every day with Sean Aylmer on Fear and Greed, Australia's best business podcast. Thank you very much for listening to How Do They Afford That? Remember to hit follow on the podcast, leave us a rating and a review as well if you feel like it. We certainly love reading those, and we appreciate the time taken to write a review. Next week, we are going to be talking about student tips, how to do money when you're a struggling student. Another one that we've been asked to do by a listener, and I can't wait to get stuck into that one. Don't miss it.